Good morning, everybody. Dual Coast Podcast. We are live June 24th, almost on
What
our
up?
month anniversary of launching, right, Russ?
Woo! Let's go, baby.
How you doing over
Yeah,
there?
I have to have my sweatshirt on here in California because of the fog and it's so cold. And you know what I mean? How you feeling over there on the East Coast?
I need a tank top I need a Dual Coast tank top right now because it's 100 degrees outside already at
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning during a nice heat wave. Those are my East Coast people who are listening right now. Yes, I know you know what's going on outside.
Oh,
But yeah, dude, been
brutal.
brutal in New York.
Oh, we got fog. I'm looking out right now. I got fog on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came in early yesterday. So yeah,
Well, you said that happens in June, right? Then it dissipates as the day goes.
yeah. We've had a week up until yesterday. We had a week where it was no fog in the morning, just beautiful all day, 72 degrees. Oh, just blissful.
Blissful, right? Little beach volleyball.
A lot of beach volleyball. Dude, I was on the beach for 5 hours Friday, Saturday, Sunday, each day.
Wow,
Yeah,
dude,
it was
nice.
great. It was
If
great.
Russ doesn't respond to anybody who's listening, you know where he is.
100%.
That's it.
100%.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we have a special episode today, I would say, in all honesty, because we're doing a 6-month recap. Dual Coast has been on the air live Tuesday mornings with no breaks since I believe it was January 7th. That was our launch day. So that is this is about 6 months of being live on the air, and I feel we've accomplished a lot actually together. Russ, what do you think? What do you say to that?
Oh yeah. I go back, kind of reflection mode, and go back to 2024
Yes.
and think about you and I meeting in New York and then, hitting each other up, along the way and then hooking up again at another event and then another event in the fall.
Yeah.
And by then we were already, brainstorming as
Yeah.
far as what we wanted to do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And podcast was where it was at, and then you came up with the name Dual Coast and it just materialized. And then we kind of got down to those last few months and it was crunch time.
Yes.
It's like, okay, now it's getting serious. Hey, we're launching in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Hey, next week we're going live.
It went fast, man, because I remember the discussion, actually, some of the preliminary discussions were maybe just early last summer, I would say, maybe like early May. But we had talked about the idea just prior to that. And then as summer started approaching, we started talking about Impact Santa Cruz. That was going to be the following year in May because you had developed that probably about 7 to 8 months in advance of that event, I would say, maybe even more. And then we kind of solidified the podcast in Missouri in September. And then it was crunch time after that because we started to get ready for January. And now it's almost a year since that whole preliminary discussion happened.
Yeah, I remember you specifically meeting with you down in the lobby of the hotel in Springfield.
Yes.
With the idea, the agenda of Dual Coast, man.
Yes.
And, that was, about 4.5 months in advance of our launch date.
Yep. Very funny, actually, to add to that story real quick. We didn't know it at the time, but potential guest Danny Flores was sitting next to us in that lobby. And we were having a discussion about the podcast in the chairs. And Danny Flores, he said, "Are you guys going to the event?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, "Me too. I'm speaking."
I'm speaking.
Speaking at this event. So we started laughing and we linked up in conversation, and he turned into a Dual Coast guest shortly after that as we launched.
That's funny. The circle of life, man.
Very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about him.
Correct.
Until that morning, and we were sat there and spoke it up with him, and that was just a great time. Renee and Allison were there, and Terry was there. So it was awesome. And so we were just hamming it up with all of them, and then cramming ourselves into the back seat of the vehicle, and
that was
Renee playing with my luscious locks, and Terry telling me to get my hair out of her face and cut it.
That's it. Guys, we're going to do a poll on Dual Coast Instagram, actually, if Russ should cut his hair or not.
Bring it on. Let me hear.
But even just stemming from Danny Flores' conversation, we've had a multitude of really amazing guests since January, just from Frank Seppi to Danny to Delaney Solana, just everybody in the mix has really brought their own specific traits and their own specific personalities onto this podcast. And I'm greatly appreciative of everybody who's come on. And me and Russ, really thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for coming on the show. And it's been incredible for 6 months, honestly. We've really learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I'm sure Russ has learned a lot too, just from all the guests contributing. And, even me and Russ just talking, I think I've learned a lot just about the podcasting world in general, and just, everything together. Has really been a great time.
Yeah. Just last week with Patrick Hogan.
Yeah.
I have implemented more movement in my workout.
For sure.
Just in the last week, 3 different times, to where I'm in the garage, I'm doing my band workout, doing jump rope, stuff like that. And then just working. And actually, Chris Rushing, who was also one of I believe our second guest.
Yeah.
He does a lot of movement as well.
Yes.
And flexibility, right? Working on your flexibility. So incorporating that more into my workouts, movement versus workout.
Yeah.
But, combining the two, right? And it's so important. I can just, feel, and I've actually had this conversation at least 3 times with other people about movement.
Interesting.
Yeah, just in this last week, and the importance of it. So I was with a buddy on the beach, and he's from Vegas, and he doesn't work out a lick. He doesn't walk, he doesn't work out, he doesn't do nothing. So we're out there, and he's a super funny guy. So we're out there on the beach, I was telling him about the movement and everything. And he's like, all right, so show me this movement, and so I was showing him like this figure 8 and how to, you know what I mean? And he's like, oh, I think I pulled a muscle.
That's funny, man.
Then like 45 minutes later, he goes, I'm kind of sore from that movement exercise. Oh man, he's just hamming it up. He's not really, but
of course.
It just, when you think about it, and you think about movement, you think about, our exercise and all that kind of stuff, and how really important it is, in flexibility, right?
Sure.
And just the overall design of our bodies.
Yeah. What's interesting about that too is, even like how Patrick said, it's movement and exercise obviously have different types of traits, different types of their own environments, and whatever you want to call them. But sometimes I feel like you can even disassociate more when you just bring in the movement aspect. Getting into, like Patrick likes to get down into nature, walk nature, crawl in nature, get in the rivers, things like that. To some people, I feel like it won't even feel like exercise.
Right.
You can disassociate a little bit. It's not that brutal idea of, to me, sometimes getting on the step mill in the gym and saying, okay, I got to go for a half an hour here, or, I don't feel accomplished. If you're out in nature and you're disassociating, and you're big with this too, Russ, putting down the technology. If you're disassociating out there, like I next to my house, I have a nature preserve. I can walk in the nature preserve. I'm moving, I'm getting exercise in, but I could disassociate. It's enjoyable. It's nothing that, where I'm on the step mill and I'm going, all right, I got to get this done. It's got to be an hour here. I got to burn this amount of calories. I'm thinking about the analytics, the logistics of it. No, just disassociate, get out there, and you move. Whatever it be, in the ocean, the preserve, walking down the street, it can be enjoyable. And we always talk about taking the first step here at Dual Coast. That's a good first step to take. Just getting outside, just doing whatever it is, and I think that could really help you disassociate from a standpoint of, you don't have that in the back of your mind at all times saying, I got to get this done. I got this goal. Maybe you don't really need a goal when you just get outside.
Right.
Just get out there, just move, see what happens, see how you feel, see how your body responds to it. And then if you say, hey, I could do a little bit more, then you do a little bit more. But if you take that first step, just getting out into nature and just moving a little bit, like Russ's friend who was out on the beach, showing me this movement thing. That's a great first step, honestly, right?
It is. And I think, walking, whoops, just knocked something off. Walking is, is so important. But what I'm finding, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, it's fantastic. It's great for our cardiovascular, especially if you're walking with a good pace, but it's just great for our mental state of mind.
Absolutely.
But it's not enough, right? We need to incorporate a lot more things in our movement, in our bodies, in our exercise.
Sure.
Physically, when we talk about leg strength, walking up and down stairs, walking up and down a hill to build leg strength. You know, people over 65 at that age, people tend to lose balance and fall, and it's lacking leg strength, right?
Yeah.
And core. So those kinds of things and building muscle mass, we don't have to be huge, but just muscles, lifting some weights, carrying some heavy buckets, or just things like that. That is just not it's simple in our thought process, but it's physically it takes work.
Yeah.
So we got to build up to that, right?
Definitely.
And so I have 2 30-pound dumbbells in the garage, and I'll just walk up and back and forth with those dumbbells, right?
Yeah.
A number of times, and then climbing hills, climbing stairs. We've got a few streets here that are got some verticality to it. So yeah, it's those kinds of things that help, and it also brings up our heart rate when we're climbing hills or stairs.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Very important.
For sure. Yeah, you definitely want to incorporate some strength. And I feel like you could even do that with the nature stuff, maybe even do some, like, I know this sounds silly, but Patrick will probably relate this very well. How do you integrate all the stuff in nature into a workout a little bit? And Patrick was actually touching on this last week when we spoke. Maybe do some push-ups off that tree. Maybe pull some rocks that are in the ground, or lift them up and walk with them a little bit. That's a good way to integrate things if you don't have a specific gym, like you don't have dumbbells, or you're not going to the gym, something like that. How do you integrate what you find on these walks? How do you integrate nature into the movement? And I feel like that's actually a really good thing. If you look at like, a lot of world's strongest man competitions, I know, I'll just throw it out there. They do a lot of stone carries and a lot of farmers walks and things like that. And they incorporate a lot of things from nature into those actual movements. I know it's a specified event and everything like that, but the idea is that, it came from nature. That's what this all kind of strongman stuff started. So if you integrate a little bit of the workout from things that you find outside, you can make a strength program out of it, a cardiovascular program out of it. I know you got to be a little bit creative, but sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I've got out in the front bed, I've got a 100-pound anchor I strap around my neck, walk up and down the parking lot.
Do you really?
No, I don't. No. I do have an anchor.
I didn't think
but I don't lift it. It's in concrete, so nobody will steal it.
Okay. That's like a sword in the stone type thing.
Stone Age.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's funny.
That's funny. I called him out right away on that one. I didn't know.
Hey, by the way, I've got right here one of our guests, Aaron Wexler. Love that dude. And where's my camera?
All right,
I'm going to give a shout out to Aaron Wexler and his Inspired Athlete book. He was one of our guests. This dude is super knowledgeable. And I'll tell you, he's the quote master. The guy can riddle out some quotes so fast, but he lives in the moment. He lives near the beach. He is an author. He is a musician, and I'll tell you what, he inspired me. And then he was one of my speakers at Impact Santa Cruz today, and amazing dude. So, take a look at his book, pick up a copy of it.
Yeah.
And support him, support Aaron Wexler. But appreciate you, Aaron, and appreciate all the guests that we've had on this show, man. It's been unbelievable 6 months.
Yes, guys, please. Yeah. Check out all of our episodes. Check out all of our guests. Guys from Frank Seppi to Tyler Pansner, Chris Rushing, Delaney Wallace, Solana Lewis, all those people that we've had, Patrick Hogan, who we just had last week. And we have a ton of guests lined up through the summertime going into September now, I would say. We have some big names coming up, some great people to get some insight from, motivation from. But definitely check out Aaron Wexler's book, Inspired Athlete. Check out all of the companies that all of our guests have had, Seppi Nutrition being one of them. Frank Seppi just put up a post yesterday, actually, that I was talking to Russ about with his nutrition bar, and Frank's looking shredded as usual. But guys, definitely check out Seppi Nutrition, Frank's whole program.
Slip off that shirt, man. Let's see if you're looking Frank-like,
Definitely not looking Frank-like. Filters on, though. If I put the filter on, maybe.
You need one of those cartoon characters, that resemble who you look like, right?
I think so. I think to look like Frank, what's the Hulk? The Hulk. That's the Hulk. That's the one I'm looking for.
Yeah. That was going back to Frank, man, that was such a fun podcast, right out of the gate. We didn't have a clue. We we'd already had a little show, but we had him on, and man, it just like looking back, and it's like, here we are 6 months later,
Yeah.
doing this thing. We have a number of great guests that are lined up over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
To carry us through the summer and into September. In fact, we're going to have Patrick back.
Yes.
It's September, October sometime.
Yes.
He's got some other things that he wants to share. And so we're like, dude, come on back, man. Anybody is welcome to come back and share. I mean, this is an open forum here on movement, on health and wellness.
Sure.
So it's really important that we spread the word on wellness, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you mentioned Dr. Tyler Pansner. Yeah. I loved that episode.
Yeah, amazing.
That was a great episode. We talk about, he swabs the mouth, you send it in, and, it's not just like you go to the store and you buy supplements. Right. Dr. Tyler Pansner, he breaks it down to your DNA. What does your body, you specifically, what does your body need? And I just saw him on a post last week hitting 100,000 followers.
Shout out
for you, Dr. Pansner, man. You're killing it. And I love seeing you on there, man, because you're a great dude, man. And I just love having conversation with him. He's just so insightful and yet so uplifting.
That's a well-deserved 100,000 right there. Well-deserved 100,000. Yeah, he has. And me and Russ have talked about this off air a bit. He has such a niche role in what he does, and it's absolutely incredible, honestly, because he will, for those of you who did not see the episode, I encourage you to watch the episode with Dual Coast, but he will take your DNA, as Russ said, swab it, see where you lack certain supplementation, and then implement it into your dietary program and see how you respond, which is absolutely incredible to me because he's helped people heal things such as anxiety, depression, thyroidal issues, hormonal imbalances. Very, very, very insightful and very interesting stuff. I myself, from the science background, love the sciences of it. So guys like that who I have on the podcast, or women on the podcast like that, from nutritional aspect, science aspect, biological aspect, I love all that. And Tyler was really special, honestly, everything he brought to the table. And, a lot of people listen to that episode. Highly encourage you to check out his link. Highly encourage you to check out his programs. Really incredible guy all around.
Yeah. And we have, two athletes that were on our podcast. You already mentioned her, Solana and Delaney.
Yeah.
Who are premier athletes when it comes to weightlifting.
Yes.
These guys are champions. So it's just amazing. The connection of meeting these people, sometimes for the first time. Of course, we already knew Solana and Delaney from previous events that we had been to.
For sure.
It was just amazing to just hear them and just to see them and follow them and to hear their expertise and what they have to say and how they're encouraging people and making an impact around the globe.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Two incredible people right there. We touched on Chris a little bit. Also got to shout out Rosie Ballard.
Absolutely.
Yep. Nutritional aspect. She really, she brought the heat on that. We saw her at Impact Santa Cruz. Everybody who was at Impact Santa Cruz, shout out that. But Rosie really brought some fire, just going back into her medical history a little bit, some stuff that she dealt with, prior to years and how she beat that. Is a training aspect now. Just great stuff all around. Really motivational, fitness aspect. Great stuff from everybody.
Yeah, you talk about walking, she starts her day with a mile walk every day.
I didn't know that.
7 days a week.
Really?
Yep. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And great. She's out in nature right now. She's out in the mountains somewhere.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's probably hitting up Patrick somewhere.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He's probably down in the river. But but that's a great way to do it, honestly. Like I said before, you could disassociate a little bit when you get out there and just walk. Like I sometimes walk around the neighborhood. I'm not tracking myself. I'm not looking at how much I did. I'm just getting out there walking. You could disassociate a little bit. Right. I'm sure there's somewhat of a goal in mind where it's like, okay, I got to get around the block a couple of times, somewhat like that. But I'm not looking at the calories burned, the mileage, how many steps I took all the time. I'll check it afterwards sometimes. But, while I'm in the moment, I don't think about it. I just move.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I very rarely maybe I'll look at my steps, but I pay no attention to calories. Calories burn, everything. I want to get a good sweat. I want my pores to open up. I want that sweat coming out. I want a detox. hydration, drinking a lot of water, super important as far as our regular diet of what we need in our body every day is water. So making sure that you stay hydrated, flushing out your system, so sometimes a gentle, easy walk that, like you said, is detached. Sometimes we've got to huff and puff it because we got to get that heart rate and get that cardiovascular moving.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. I think a lot of people lack on that on the hydration aspect, though. I think most people, I don't know the actual true statistics, but I would have to say greater than 50% of people probably do not drink enough water. Absolutely. I think that's probably a accurate statistic. That's just by me guessing. And
I drink a lot of water, and I know I'm below.
Exactly. I'm guilty of it too, honestly. I drink a fair amount of water, and I know that I'm probably not to the standard of where I should be. I don't track it so much as probably other people do, but I know I'm probably not to the standard of what hydration should look like per day.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that's a very encouraging thing, to try to drink a lot of water per day. And, from just a standpoint of being biologically healthy, yes, but also, guys, it's a big pick-me-up. Everybody's like, I got to go for that coffee. I got to try to boost my energy up, but drink a cup of coffee. That's not always the case. Hydration will give you that motivation and give you that drive and really give you that pick-me-up. I remember specifically when I was back in college in a bionutrition class, there was a professor, and it was late at night, and he was a PhD graduate. I believe it was biology and nutrition or something along those lines. And he's like, everybody got their coffees tonight. And he made a joke, and everybody's like, yeah, I got my coffees. He's like, well, you're drinking the wrong thing. And this is like 8:00 at night. He's like, everybody should have a water in their hands if they want that pick-me-up. And that always stuck with me. Like, I've thought about that since I've been in college. It's been a long time since I've been out of college. And he's always like, you guys should be drinking water. Everybody should be having this amount of water per day.
Yeah.
If you got a bottle of water in your hands, you have a bigger pick-me-up than drinking that caffeine. And it's funny. I think about that all the time.
Yeah, it's stuck right here, man.
That stuck with me. Yeah.
Being that it's such a hot day, you should go over to your fridge and get some cold water right now.
Yeah. I'll wait for my fridge to get delivered, then I'll go get the water. I got some hot water on the ground ready to go. But yeah, it's
Dan's refrigerator broke. That's why.
That's correct. All fair conversations. But yeah, funny how stuff like that sticks with you. But yeah, even like just tracing back to some of the guests that we've had, a lot of stuff has stuck with me. Just, Chris talking about the movement, Tyler talking about the nutrition, Rosie talking about movement, Solana talking about powerlifting and coaching. We've had so many amazing guests who really brought just a spectacle of their traits and their, personal lives onto this podcast. And, like I said before, I'm truly grateful for everybody who's shared everything with us, everybody who's come on this podcast, everybody who's taken the time out of their day to join us. Because obviously me and Russ are newer at this, this is the 6-month episode, and just tracing back to Frank's episode, we didn't really know what we were doing technologically from that standpoint. If you look if you look at Frank's episode, the pictures are very small and everything like we didn't really even know what we were doing from that standpoint, let alone the speaking standpoint.
Right.
But, I thank everybody who has listened to us, who has downloads on all of our social media platforms, who listens to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube. Yeah, I'm truly grateful for everybody who's done that.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And, one of the things that we stated from the very get-go that we're going to end our podcast with is
wellness is not about perfection. It's about progress. And I don't have my bracelet on right now, but you can see there's a tan line on my hand from it right there. Russ has his on, I'm sure.
Boom. Right there. Hidden under a couple others, but it's there.
That's it. And we've been very good on this, asking every single guest what that's meant to them. And nobody has just said yes, which we got some response. But that was a statement that resonated. And even Frank brought it up that it was a quotation in a book, if I remember correctly, just tracing back to Frank again. I don't recall the author that he said, but he did say it was a quotation in a book. But that's a great thing to stand on, though. And it's not about perfection. It's about progress. And you could use that in life, too. It's not about perfection. It's about progress, no matter what you're doing. It doesn't always have to be perfect so long as you're getting better. And that's how I look at my life, too. maybe it's not perfect, but as long as I'm getting better every single day and I'm trying my hardest and I'm progressing, that's got to be okay with you guys. And like, nobody's ever going to be perfect, but as long as you're making that progress, that's great.
Yeah, because if we're striving, to be perfect, we're going to fail every time.
That's right.
Right. But if we are striving for progress every day, 1% every day, getting better, that is achievable. And that means that every day we're going to get better and better and better in whatever capacity that we are going to live our lives in, right? Whatever you're striving for today. So one of the things, as we wrap this up, one of the things that we talked about is your word for 2025, right? So, with that, how are you out there? How are you doing? What is your word? If you want to hit us up and share with us, that would be awesome. But what is your word for 2025 and what is carrying you? If you don't have one, we're on the latter half now. We're moving towards the last 6 months of 2025. Create a word that's going to challenge you, that means something to you for this year, right? And so we need something that's going to impact our lives and something that we're going to strive for with our word that's going to associate with progress every day. And mine is certainty. Being certain in everything I do. And where there is certainty, there is no doubt. And your word is?
Connected.
Connected.
Yep. So back in January, me and Russ had this conversation prior to actually hosting the podcast based on word of the year. And he asked me my word, and I didn't really know. And then once we did the podcast, I thought about it, and I came up with the word connected. How do I connect to different people? How do I connect with this podcast? How do I connect to things that I'm doing in everyday life? And I felt that word really resonated with me because I want to be more connected to the things I was doing. How do I achieve success in this? How do I connect to it in more of a higher degree? And, doing this podcast has actually allowed me to do that a little bit better too, because I'm connecting with the guests. I'm resonating with this. I'm connecting in my life, the balance a little bit of how I do things. And I really, truly think that word was best suitable to me because I felt that I lacked that a bit in the prior years. And how do I make myself better is put that goal in mind, create the word, and then try to implement it into my everyday life. How do I connect with the people at work? How do I connect with people I don't know? Same thing as this. I knew none of these guests who came on this podcast, prior to really to, some friends and things like that in the network. And Russ hasn't known everybody who comes on the podcast either, but we've connected with those people in some way, shape, or form to have them come on here and share their beliefs or share their story with us. And that's one way I have to try to live my life now is how do I connect with this person? How do I connect with that person? Or how do I connect with what I'm doing, the physical tasks? And that word really resonated with me, and I'm really trying to stick with it. We're halfway through 2025 now, and I'm hoping to carry out for the next 6 months. And then, come late December, I'll think of something else. I'll think of a new word. And how do I connect with that word? Right?
Wow, awesome. Yeah. Well said, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, wellness is not about perfection, but it's about progress. And here at Dual Coast, that's what we strive for. We are trying to progress and get better every week. Having the guests on are sharpening us, who we are as a person. And hopefully, as you're listening today, the coming weeks, you've listened to past episodes, make sure you give us a shout out. Make sure you follow us at Dual Coast Podcast. And like we said, from East Coast to West Coast, from hot to cold, baby, we're doing it. We're bringing it live every Tuesday morning, 5:30 here on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast. And Dan, I'm enjoying every single time being with you on Tuesday morning, even when I got to get up so early.
Me too, man. I'm sorry about that. But he looks great, guys. Guys,
oh man,
listening. Tune in next week. Special guest next week. Russ, who's our guest next week?
Dan Guerra.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. Can't wait. He's in your neck of the woods, man.
In my neck of the woods. Yep. Same as Patrick Hogan. They have good ties together. So yeah, going to be a great.
I think you're going to get out and run with him soon, right?
Yeah, right. Definitely will.
After you get some cold water.
After I get some cold water. Hydrate. Like I said.
Stay hydrated, East Coasters.
That's it. Guys, take care. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Like Russ said, check us out on all our social media platforms. Check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Download. Greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate all the guests who've come on this show. See you guys next week.
Peace out.